As of this morning, Ford received an official EPA rating of 320 miles of range for their extended range battery pack option, which yes, is 20 miles better than they originally thought it was going to be, which once again just puts the Lightning in a bit more of a competitive edge, especially if you consider the Rivian R1T, which has started deliveries and will pretty much be the only alternative electric pickup truck on the market once the F-150 Lightning launches. These two pickups are lining up with each other pretty closely, and especially if you consider with Rivian's latest round of price hikes for the next couple years, the cheapest 300-mile range Rivian is going to be around $80,000. Once they actually start manufacturing the dual motor Rivian in 2024, then there should be a 300-mile range version that costs closer to around $74,000, but that's where the F-150 Lightning is today with the extended range battery pack options. Now, I wanted to address some of the misinformation that I see is still very abundant in my last video on the F-150 Lightning. There's still a lot of confusion floating around out there. So some people were under the belief that the F-150 Pro, the cheapest one for $40,000, is only available to fleet buyers, and that is not entirely true. There's only one F-150 Lightning so far that Ford has restricted to fleet buyers, as in businesses buying up a ton of trucks, and that's the extended range option on the F-150 Lightning Pro. So I agree, this is a little bit confusing, but basically if your thought process was, oh, well, I'll just get the $40,000 Lightning and pay the $10,000 or $20,000 extra for the extended range option, therefore I get a 300-mile range F-150 Lightning for, say, $50,000, $60,000? Yeah, that option is only going to be available to the businesses that are buying up lots of them. If you're just an individual consumer and you just want one truck for yourself, then the jump to 300 miles of range is a bit more drastic, because back when Ford at least let you order the F-150 Lightning, which they don't anymore, by the way, because demand is too high, but when they did, the only way to get the extended range option was to spec up the F-150 Lightning XLT and then add the extended range battery pack on top of that, which requires you to get these additional interior features and basically ends up being like a $20,000 upgrade. And that's why the cheapest F-150 Lightning with a 320 mile range now, which is still pretty good, starts at $74,000. Again, before dealer markups. There probably will be some big ones. The other common bit of confusion that I see too many people treating as fact is one statement that we heard specifically from MKBHD. He was talking to a Ford spokesperson who told him that these range estimates are calculated with a 1,000-pound payload, and I just want to disclose that that's pretty much the only time we've heard that referenced. We haven't seen that brought up by Ford. We haven't seen it brought up in the EPA reports. Typically, when you're doing EPA range testing, you don't include a 1,000-pound payload. That's a bit bizarre, especially if you're trying to showcase how efficient the powertrain can be and how aerodynamic the vehicle is. You don't want to add additional weight. So it's possible that when Ford was doing their own testing, they had a 1,000-pound payload and the extended range option was getting around 300 miles. Maybe they've taken that payload out and now received a range of 320 miles, which is a bit more on par with the same amount of range testing that goes on with Rivian's vehicles and Tesla's vehicles. Again, it's possible that they might have done all these range tests with 1,000 pounds of payload, but the bigger misconception that I've seen in way too many comments that's really bothering me is people assuming that once you take out that 1,000-pound payload, the range is substantially further. I've even seen people go as far as, well, once you take 1,000 pounds out of the truck, the range is actually going to be closer to 400 or 500 miles. And first of all, that would be a terrible thing if it were true, because it means just by operating the F-150 Lightning with a full payload of, say, 2,000 pounds, then that means your range would basically be cut in half and you would have like 100 miles of range with the truck, which would not be good for anyone planning on doing any kind of intensive work with their truck, filling up the bed with gravel or just taking a trip with a lot of people in the cab alongside a lot of cargo in the bed. You don't want payload differences to impact range that drastically. So even if it is true and Ford is doing all of this testing with 1,000 pounds of payload capacity, don't expect the range to be that much drastically better if you take out the payload. If anything, maybe it would get to like 340 or 350 miles of range, which is still good, but also you hope it would be good. You're going to be spending about $80,000 on this pickup truck, so getting over 300 miles of range out of it is not too much to ask for, especially considering everyone who bought previous F-150s is likely used to much better range than that. So I'm just trying to keep expectations realistic realistic because I still think the F-150 Lightning is of great value, and I think it's a very competitive option, and I'm still somewhat surprised that Ford is assuming they don't need to increase prices like everybody else is due to inflation and rising cost of materials and operations. So if they're able to keep the prices of the F-150 Lightning locked in, that's going to be a really decent option. Just finding any EV these days that gets over 200 miles of range on a $40,000 price point is pretty rare in itself, let alone finding a pickup truck that's capable of doing that. And again, I'm even accounting for dealer markups. Even if the F-150 Lightning Pro comes with $10,000 of dealer markup, that's still going to be a $50,000 electric pickup truck that's all-wheel drive with a 5.5-foot bed in a decent interior. Sure, the market may be a lot more competitive in a few years when the Silverado launches and the Cybertruck becomes available and all that, but in the meantime, Ford has doubled down on the F-150 Lightning being available this spring, which is not too much longer to go, and they're saying customer deliveries are going to start within the next couple weeks. So this is coming very, very soon, and I can't wait to see more in-person, like, customer reviews of this thing, finding out all of those quirks and features, as well as all of those little minor details. Like, I personally prefer the base model interior because I don't like vertical screens, and I don't like the physical dial for volume. So the fact that the base option has a landscape display, I would personally rather take that, even if it was the same price. And of course, the industry-leading frunk space that we've seen on the F-150 Lightning, which is about as spacious as your typical car trunk. So, wanted to discredit the rumors that the F-150 Lightning has been delayed, and discredit the rumors that the F-150 Pro is only available for fleet buyers. That's only for the extended range option, and also, don't expect the Lightning with no payload to get over 400 miles of range. That would be absurd, and if it were true, that would mean a max payload would instantly tank your range. Based on what we know about the miles per gallon equivalent and how much range the base option Lightning gets and how efficient it is, 1,000 pounds payload is not going to make that massive of a difference in range. So trying to keep expectations realistic here. It's still a great product. It's still a fantastic option, I think, especially for Ford fans. And of course, let me know what you guys think of the F-150 Lightning kind of matching the Rivian in range now and somewhat undercutting them on total price. Thank you to everyone supporting the channel over on Patreon. Seriously, helps out a ton, as does just watching these videos. Take care all, and have a great day.